Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to show you guys how to make a jacket for a man. So my jacket's design looks like this, and the materials I'm using are black denim, green cord, and then black fleece for the lining to make this jacket nice and warm for the wearer. So the pieces you'll need are 2 sleeves from your main fabric and 2 from your fleece or lining. Four front yokes from your green cord or whatever fabric you choose to use. 2 backs on the fold for your yokes. Then 4 front bottoms, 2 from your main and 2 from your lining. Then 2 backs on the fold, so 1 from your main and 1 from your lining. Then 2 collars on the fold. Mine are both from my denim. Then 2 sleeve cuffs, again mine are from my green cord. Then mine also has pockets on it. So I have 2 patch pockets and 2 pocket flaps. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is sew our back yokes to our bottom backs. So what you are going to do is you're going to unpin your pattern from your back yokes and also from your bottom backs. So you should have a lining bottom back and a main bottom back, and then a lining back yoke and a main back yoke. So you are going to set aside your lining back yoke and your lining bottom back, and you're going to take your main yoke and fold it out, and your main bottom back, and you're going to fold it out. You're then going to match your centres and pin them together. And you're going to match your sides and pin them together. You're then going to sew along this seam with a 1 centimetre seam allowance using a straight stitch. You will then repeat this step for your back linings. So once you have stitched that seam on your main and on your lining, you now want to, on the right side of both your main and your lining, top stitch this seam down so that it lays nice and flat and also looks nice and neat on the outside. You can also press this seam before you top stitch it, just so it makes it easier to sew. Now that you have top stitched that line on your backs, you can now put your backs to the side for a minute, and you want to grab your front bottom pieces and your front yokes. You can now unpin both pieces from your pattern. you are going to do is you're going to grab your lining pieces and your main pieces, and you're going to pin them together along that same line as we did for the backs. So now that you have pinned your front yokes to your front bottoms on both main pieces and both linings, you can now stitch across them using a 1 centimetre seam allowance. So now that you have stitched that seam on all 4 of your front pieces, you can now go ahead and top stitch each seam down to make it nice and neat. You can also press this seam before you top stitch to make it easier to do so. So now you want to grab your pocket and your pocket flaps. You want to unpin your pocket from your pattern and do the same with your pocket flap. You should have cut 4 pieces for each. So what you want to do is you want to take them off so that you have 2 pairs. You then want to stitch around all 4 sides of the pocket flaps and the pockets, leaving a little hole to turn them through. Once you have stitched, you can then turn them through and press them. So once you have sewn your 2 layers of your pocket and your pocket kit flaps together, you then want to top stitch across one side of your pocket and one long side and both the short sides of your pocket kit flaps. You're then going to add a buttonhole to the long side of your pocket kit flap that you have just top stitched. So once you have top stitched your sides of your pockets and your pocket flap and added your buttonholes, you now want to grab your main pieces of your fronts and you're going into attach your pocket and your pocket kit flap to the front of your jacket. Now to do this, you want to find the centre of this line on your jacket. So you're going to measure how long that line is. So my one is 30. So then from the centre front you want to mark half of that. So mine will be 15, which is there. And then you want to grab one of your pocket flaps, one of your pockets, and lay the centre of that on that marking just below that line of stitching. You're then going to line it up along that line of stitching and pin it to the front of your pocket. You're then going to stitch your pocket on around here and here to secure it to your jacket. You're then going to grab one of your pocket flaps and lay it so that the centre is on this mark, and your buttonhole lies just over the edge of your pocket. You will then pin that on and stitch that on across the top of your pocket flap. You will then repeat these steps to the pocket and the flap on the other side of your front. So once you have sewn your pockets and your pocket flaps onto your fronts, you can now attach your front to your backs at the shoulder seams. The seams. You want to take your front and back shoulders and line them up so that they meet at the armhole seam and also at the neckline. You will then stitch with a straight stitch across this seam using a 1 centimetre seam allowance. You will then repeat on the other shoulder seam, the seam, and repeat for your linings. Next, what you want to do is pin your sleeves to your armholes. So you want to take the sleeve head like I have done here and just ease it into the armhole so that it fits around your armhole. You will then repeat this to the other side of the main jacket and for the lining. And then using a 1 centimetre seam allowance, you also stitch the sleeve into the armhole. So next, what you want to do is you want to sew up your side seams and your other arm seam on your main jacket and your lining. So what you will do is you will match your bottom edges on your jacket and pin them. You will match your sleeve seams and pin them. And then you'll match your wrist seams and pin them. And then just add a few more pins along in between them, just to secure it nicely in place. And then you also sew this seam, the one on the other side of your main jacket, and both the ones on your lining with right sides together and a straight stitch and a 1 centimetre seam allowance. When you are sewing one of your side seams in your lining, be sure to leave a hole, a decent sized hole, in the side seam of your lining, as this will help us to turn the whole jacket through later on in the process. Okay, so now you have sewn up your side seams and left a hole in one of your lining side seams. You can now put your lining and your main jacket together. So what you will do is with right sides together, you pin your lining to your main jacket along the front opening. And the other front opening. You will then also pin it together along the bottom edge. once you've pinned around your front opening along the bottom and up the other front opening, you will then stitch together your lining to your jacket from the top of one opening around the bottom and back up to the other for the top opening using a straight stitch and a 1 centimetre seam allowance. Okay, so once you have sewed your 2 layers together, you want to clip your corners on the bottom corners of your jacket like I have done here. You then want to find the hole you left in your lining and turn your whole jacket in the right way. Once you have done that, you want to grab something that has a slight point to it. I will be using a knitting needle and just poke out the corners on the bottom edge of your jacket. And next, what you want to do is you want to put your lining sleeves inside your main jacket sleeve. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab the bottom of your lining sleeve and just push it so that it's back to being inside out. And then you're just going to push it through the main sleeve. And then you're going to line up your seams on your sleeve, and you're just going to fiddle around with it until it's all nice and flat and lays nice and flat inside the sleeve like that. And then you will repeat for the other sleeve as well. And push it through the other one. So it lays nice and flat like this. and then you just want to go over to your iron and press your centre fronts and your bottom edge to make them all nice and neat. Once you have pressed your jacket so that the front edge and bottom both lay nice and flat, you can now stitch up that little hole you left in your side seam. Once you have done that, you can put your main jacket to the side for a moment and grab your collar pieces. Firstly, you need to unpin your pattern from your collar pieces. And now you should have two identical pieces of collar. You might want to press your collar so that it lays nice and flat, but once you have done that, you can put your collar so that it lays right sides together. And what you are going to do is you are going into stitch with a 1 centimetre seam allowance around both short edges and the shorter long edge. Once you have sewn around your collar, you can clip the corners like I have done here. You can then turn your collar in the right way and push out your corners. And then you need to press your collar so that it lays nice and flat. Okay, so the next bit is optional, but I like to do this just to make it look neater. So what I am going to do is really close to the edge, just top stitch along my 3 sewn sides of my collar. Next, what I am going to do is just with my overlocker secure the 2 layers of the neckline of my collar together. Next, what you need to do is pin your collar to your jacket. So what I normally do is find half of my collar, and how we're going to do this is slightly different because I pin my collars wrong side to right side, like so. So if you pin your collar so then you match your centre backs and you match your centre front to your notch where your button stand will be. And then you just continue lining up the rest of your neckline. And then you want to do exactly the same on the other side. So again, line up your centre, your front of your collar with your notch on your jacket. Then just line up the rest of your neckline with your collar and pin it in place. And once that is all pinned, you can then stitch your collar to your jacket using a 1 centimetre seam allowance. Once you have sewn your collar onto your neckline, you want to grab either a strip of fabric or some bias binding. And what you are going to do is you're going to fold out one side, and you're going to use this to finish off the raw edge of your collar and neckline. So what you are going to do is you're going to pin it along the seam that you just sewed, leaving a little bit of a tail at one end, and you're just going to pin it straight along your collar and your neckline. And then you're just going to sew this binding to your jacket along this crease in the binding. So once you have sewn your binding to your collar, you then want to fold it down and pin it towards the green part of your coat. So what you do is the little tail you left on the end, you want to fold that in. You then want to fold your binding in half, and then you want to fold it down towards your green, all the binding, and then just pin it down. You want to continue doing that in that all the way along your collar until it looks something like that. You're then going to top stitch this binding down, so that all your collar raw edges are enclosed and you've got a nice neat edge on your collar. So now you have a nice enclosed raw edge of your collar. You can now put your coat to one side again and grab your cuff bands for your sleeves. You can unpin your cuffs from your pattern, and what you are going to do is you're going to sew up this seam here. Once you have sewn down that seam, you can now fold your cuffs so that they are half the width. So you want to open out your seam like that and put your ends together, and then just flip them so that they're then half the width and are now double layer, like so. Next, you want to grab your sleeve and your cuff, and you're going to get your cuff and slide your sleeve inside the cuff, so that the raw edges meet. You're then going to pin the seams of the calf to the seams of your jacket, and then you're just going to stitch around the end of your calf to stitch your calf to your jacket. So once you have sewn your calves onto your jacket, the only thing left to do is to apply buttons and buttonholes to your centre front and sew on your buttons to your pockets to fasten them. So I hope you have all enjoyed this video and that you now have a lovely new jacket to wear. So until next time, bye.